We are on 10b. Let's go from a little bit where we started yesterday, maybe about 10, 12 lines down, the last two words. We saw this session, let's just see it again. Darish Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, says Rav Nachman, the son of Rav Chisda, what does the pasuk in Kollel say? Yesh hevel asher nas al aretz. Yesh hevel asher nas al aretz. The Gomer, there is a futile, what's happening on the earth. What's that? So the end of the verse says that there are righteous people. Yesh tzadikim. The verse says that get the same as the wicked, and there's the wicked that get the same as the righteous. So he said that's also futile. So what was he referring to? There are two suggestions. Ashrayim l'tzadikim, praiseworthy are the righteous. Shemagia aleim k'maisa harashayim shel olam haba. Praiseworthy are the righteous who get what the wicked get in the next world. Meaning, praiseworthy are the righteous who suffer in this world. Olam haza. That's one, because then they're going to end up getting more next world. And vice versa. Woe unto the wicked that that get what tzadikim get shel olam haba b'olam haza. And woe unto the wicked because they're going to get all this good stuff in this world just to remove them from the next world. Now the implication is that we're praising the righteous for suffering in this world. Explanation being they'll get more reward in the next world. So to that we're going to ask, really a tzaddik can enjoy both worlds? Really, if they ate from two worlds, meaning if they enjoyed two worlds, meaning if they don't suffer in this world, really that's like so bad that a tzaddik should have this world and the next world? Why not? So Ella Amarava Rava learns the verse differently. Ashrayim l'tzadikim, praiseworthy are tzadikim shemagia leim k'maizer rishayim shalom haza be'olam haza. Praiseworthy are the tzadikim that get reward like the wicked get in this world. So praiseworthy are the righteous that get the same as the wicked do in this world, meaning reward. So and oilahem l'rishayim shemagia leim k'maizer tzadikim, and woe unto the righteous that get and woe unto the righteous who have to suffer in this world like the righteous have to suffer in this world. Because if the wicked have to suffer in this world, that means they might be getting more reward in the next world. And that's a woe, that's an oy. So Rav Papa Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua Asu Lekame de Rav. So Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, came in front of Rava. Amar Lahu who came to Mesechta plan Mesechta plan. They said, did you finish this Masechta? Did you finish that Masechta? So Amrulay, so he asked them, you guys learned that Masechta? You guys learned that Masechta? Yeah. Going Daf Yomi for a long time, of course. Amrulay in. Then he asked them, Iatrisu Purta, you have a little wealth? So Amrulay in. Yeah, we do. That the Zav and Katina Da'ara. So they each have this, they each bought this portion of land that sustains them. So the interview was over, and Kari Alayhu, he said about them, praiseworthy are the righteous who receive what the wicked get in this world, meaning praiseworthy that just like the wicked in this world sometimes are prospering. So praiseworthy are tzaddikim who also get goodness in this world. Now, a wicked will get good in this world to remove him from the next. But a tzaddik can get goodness in this world just because he's a tzaddik, not to remove him from the next world. And that's a praiseworthy thing. And I believe it's Pirkei Avos that talks about the person who commits himself to Torah study is praiseworthy in this world and in the next world. Okay, so Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So continuing a little bit, Agadata right now, it's like not really Agadata, but it's going to turn into Agadata. So, Mai Dichsip, what does the verse mean when it says the following? Ki Yesharim Darchei Hashem, the path of God is righteous. V'tzadikim yelchu bo. There's a path that's righteous. The tzadikim walk down that path. Uposhim, and the negligent ones, yikashlu bum, they stumble in it. So now we're going to try to figure out different parables that this might be referring to. So, first one is about Pesach. There's a parable to two people that each roasted their korban Pesach. Now, we're comparing the righteous to the negligent. So, one person, he ate it because he wanted to fulfill the mitzvah. And one just ate it, it seems like to stuff his face. Not for the mitzvah per se, but just to overeat. Usually achila gas is referring to overeating. It's eating in a state where you're already full. In fact, if one does that on Yom Kippur, he's not liable fully. He's not liable for kares. The Gemara in Arvei Psachim and other places clearly states that overeating in a way that it's either damaging to the body or not enjoyable for the body, the Torah does not consider that a full act of eating. So either way, that's what happened. So that which the person who ate it for the mitzvah, so tzaddik, and the person that ate it just to overeat, so he's considered negligent. To that, Reish Lakish said, this is all from Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish says, Amar Reish Lakish, Rasha Karisle, you're really going to call him a Rasha? You're right, he didn't do the best mitzvah possible. Seems like he didn't eat it with all the right intentions, but Pesach Milo Ka'achil. At the end of the day, did he eat the Pesach or did he not eat the Pesach? The answer is that he ate it. Now, this Gemara seems to imply that overeating, meaning eating achila gasa, is still considered proper eating. And that's a direct contradiction to many other Gemaras. So the Rabbeinu Tam in numerous places says there's actually two kinds of achila gasa. There's one achila gasa where you don't want to eat, you're not enjoying the food. And there's another achila gasa that's actually damaging for you. So he makes that distinction based off of this Gemara, which seems to imply that achila gasa, eating when you're already full, you still have eaten. Because the Gemara here says you didn't fulfill the mitzvah in the best way possible, but you still consider like you ate the Pesach, no? So this is one of the proofs. We're in Jared, we are in 10b. In the wide lines, 4 wide lines down. A little past the middle.
Sorry, Mr. I was one of the reports on the
Yeah. Okay, so that's not a good parable. Rather, like this. We need a case where two people are put in the same situation. One is fulfilled the mitzvah, one is not fulfilled the mitzvah. So we go from Pesach to what we call a little more extreme example. A parable to two people. One is living with his wife and also his sister. And so to the other one. So one of them he ends up having relations with his wife, and one of them he ends up having relations with his sister. So the one that ends up having relations with his wife, that's considered like tzaddikim are walking down that path. So the one that wasn't careful had relations with his sister, he's obviously considered negligent. So says the Gemara, that's not exactly fitting into our verse. Our verse was talking about one path that they both walked down. These are two different paths. One's a wife, one's a sister. We need a more precise parable. And now it's going to jump into Head Start Samagarata about Lot. Elo Mashal Lot. So what happened to Lot? So he escaped Sodom. He had 2 daughters. They ended up having relations with him, and he ended up having Ammon and Moab come from there. So Elo Mashal Lot b'shtei benosav. Lot and his 2 daughters. So who's considered righteous and who's considered negligent? They had fully good intentions. The world was, in their mind, absolutely destroyed, and they needed to continue the continuation of the world. So that was their intention. They're called tzaddikim yelchubam. Tzaddikim are walking righteously in that path. He who had intent for an aveira, he's considered uposhim yikashlubam. As a negligent person stumbles in his path. So says the Gemara, hold on. Who told you Lot didn't have good intentions? Where'd you get that from? Maybe he also had good intentions. No. Kol hapasuk hazeh, the entire verse regarding Lot, is all going to be interpreted to for Aveira. Kol hapasuk hazeh l'shem Aveira now. Okay, so let's see. So the first thing is Vayisa Lot. Lot raised up his eyes. So this is right, the verse talking about he's looking up at where to go. So he lifts up his eyes. It says the Gemara, that's comparable to Batisa Eish Sadonav Eseineha. That's comparable to the lifting of the eyes of the wife of Potiphar that tried to seduce Yosef. Einav, he lifted up his eyes. That's referring to Shimshon. Shimshon, he wanted that woman. She's very good in my eyes. Vayar was a Shem ben Chamor. That Vayar in the pasuk, and he saw is referring to Shem. I think when he ended up raping Dinah. Yeah. As Kol Kikar Yarden, Lot saw the entire plains of the Yarden. That's referring to Kiva ad Isha Zona ad Kikar Lechem. That's referring to in Mishlei, paying a prostitute with some bread. Kikulo Mashke, the whole place is irrigated. So that's referring to a verse in Hosea. Elcha Kizansa Imo Hovisha Harasam Ki Amra Elcha Achre Me'oavai. Nos Nelachmu Meme Tzamru Pishti Shamni Vishikuyai. Says that there's also a level of znus, of immoral, illicit relations over there in Hosea that this is referring to. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, hold on, but there's background to the story. So, Vaha Minas Ones. Maybe we should consider Lot in Ones, meaning it was an unavoidable accident, meaning I believe they explained that they ended up putting him to sleep. They gave him wine, put him to sleep. So who says he had a? Who said that he had a choice? Right. I think that's the background. Maybe he was an ones because I think they gave him wine. They gave him, yeah, good. So they gave him wine. So maybe he's an unavoidable accident. So why are you calling him this negligent guy that fell in the path of the wicked? Maybe he's an ones. So Tana Mishum Rabbi Yossi by Rabbi Choni. So Lama Nakud Al Vav Shebekoma. So in the verse, I don't think we're gonna be able to see it here, but in the Chumash, that verse that talks about, it says Vatishkana Esavian Yain, the women, the daughters gave their father wine, Balailahu, Betavo Habachir, and then the older one went, Vatishka Vesaviha, Velo Yada, Veshikha Uvkuma. And he didn't know of a lying down or of the getting up. So he's saying, Lama Nakul al Vav Shebekoma Shel Bechira. How come the Vav in that part where it talks about the daughter having relations with the older daughter having relations with her father, why does the Vav have different nekudos, different there's different dots on top of it. So what's that for? Those are always to be interpreted for something. That it sounds like maybe he didn't know about the lying down with her, but the getting up with her, he did know. That part he knew. He knew what just happened. So, okay, but when he got up, what was he supposed to do? It already happened. So, says the Gemara, Nafkamina, okay, but he shouldn't have drinking another time. Meaning that first time when he got up and realized that his daughter just had relations with him, he should not have followed and did it a second time with the other daughter. So even though he didn't know originally what happened when he went down, when he went to sleep, when he got up, he realized what happened. And since he realized what happened, he shouldn't have done it again. And because he did it again, so then he's considered someone who's considered negligent. You can't be considered unavoidable the second time around. So you already caught the first time.
He wasn't honest the first time.
It sounds like he was honest the first time, yeah, but not the second time. Okay, so now that we mentioned Lot, we're going to now discuss more about him and the daughters. Darish Rabba Mai Dichsiv. What does the verse mean? Okay, a hard verse to translate. The verse Ach Nifsha Mikiryas Oz, the verse of Mishlei. The brother who was I don't know how they jumped this.
Contention, to create contention is like the both of the gate.
Yeah, so ach nifsha, someone who creates nifsha, poshe is like negligent, but he creates basically negligence or I guess contentions. He creates negligence, mi kiryat oz, which like bowls of a gate. No, with like the conquering of a city, like a strong city. Umid yanim kivriach armon. I think that word is contentions. And then he creates these contentions, he creates this fighting, this tension, kibriach armon, like the bolt of a palace. Okay, so what does that mean? So so the first part at least, ach nifsha mi kiryat oz, zelot. This is Lot, Shapireish me Avraham, who left Avraham. So he was negligent, it sounds like. He left Avram Avinu, meaning they parted ways. He wasn't able to stay with him. So, Umidyanim Kibriach Armon. So what does that mean? That he created these contentions like a bolt of a palace. Shehitil Midyanim, Shehitil Madinim, Bein Yisrael La'amon. He created tension between the Jews and Ammon. Shene'amar lo yavo Ammoni u'moavi b'kal Hashem. That Ammon and Moab were not allowed to enter into the Jewish people, and yeah. Now, what exactly did he have to do with Ammon and Moab not entering the Jewish people? It sounds like it's directly related to their act, because of the act that he did. Therefore, they weren't allowed to enter the Jewish people. Okay, the Torah says otherwise.
Lot's residents in Sodom.
Torah says because they didn't give us water, or no?
Lot's residents in Sodom led eventually to the incident of incest. And
He isolated himself in order to satiate his lust.
He isolated himself and saved his lust.
Exposed to all bodies of wisdom.
Okay. I have in my head that the Torah writes that they didn't give us. Okay. I guess whatever. I guess he was a cause. He was also part of the cause. I thought it said that they didn't give us food and water, so therefore they can never marry in.
you have a pasuk in the Ravim on that, and it says Lot's residents in Sodom led eventually to the incest.
Okay. So the incest that led from Sodom was related to this verse of not having them enter into
the males are prohibited, the females are permitted because
Right,
they have
rough.
intended to sin, whereas the daughter is intended to do a mitzvah.
the husband intended the father intended to sin, that was Lot. So the males cannot enter, okay, good. But the daughters could, right? That was really the whole background story to Ruth. That Boaz at the end ended up saying, no, really, people didn't know the halacha. They thought that also a woman can't enter into the Jewish people from Moab. How did Ruth enter? So Boaz told her, no, it's only a male, not a female. Okay. Darishara Rava expound to the one who's has lust. He desires lust, he's nifrad. He separates. Bekol Toshia Yizgala. In all of his Bekol Toshia Yizgala, in all of his savior, he's revealed. He'll be in all bodies of wisdom. Okay. He'll be exposed in all bodies of wisdom. Okay, so who's this referring to? L'taiva Yevakesh Nifrad is the one who seeks out desire, who's pursuing desire. He's separated. Zelot Shenifrad Me Avraham. That's Lot who's separated from Avraham. It sounds like his desire to conquer more, to be on his own, whatever it was, caused that separation. I think others learn this verse to mean that the separation between the head and the heart, knowing what's right, and actually doing it, is caused by desire. That's why this week's parsha says you should circumcise one's heart. So the Ramban says you should work on your desires, because deep down inside we don't want to do the right thing because our desires want something else. Okay, B'chol Toshia is Gala, in all his wisdom he was revealed. What was that? She is Gala Klono, the Bate Knesios, who be Bate Midrashos. His embarrassment was revealed in all the shuls and all the study halls. Why? The mission says Amoni Wa'avi Aslurin Isser Olam. Because everyone's going to be doing Daf Yomi, and they're going to get to a part. They're going to say a male Ammon and Moab can't enter, and you're going to say why not? And you're like, oh, because Lot had bad intentions. So that which he did ended up being revealed. Yeah. Okay. The Amar Ula. Now, more about incest. Tamar Zinsa, the Zimri Zina. So now, Tamar and Yehuda, we know that story, right from Bereshit. And then Zimri was the one that Zimri Vakazi was the one that Pinchas did his act of zealousness and killed. So, Tamar Zinsa, the Zimri Zina. Tamar Zinsa, what happened to Tamar when she had incest with Yehuda? Yatsumi Menu Malachim Benevim. From her came Malachim Benevim. Zimri Zina Naflu Kama Rivavos Yisrael. Thousands of Jews died. 24,000 Jews died in that plague after Zimri committed that incest. So, what does it mean from Tamar came kings and prophets? Well, we know from Tamar came Moab. From Tamar ended up coming David HaMelech. Came David HaMelech, and that all came from Tamar. So we're comparing the two. It sounds like because one had good intention, one had bad intention. So now, this is a Gemara which is not to be taken practically in any which way, but the concept is talked about a lot. Maybe also in the Kabbalistic works, not sure, but over of Nachum Bar Yitzchak, there's such a concept, but it's not to be taken practically. Kedola Aveir Lishma. There's something called an Aveir Lishma, doing a sin for the right reasons. So that is greater than a mitzvah for the wrong reason. Shinamar, how do I know? It says in Shoftim, Tivorach minashim Yael. Eishes chaver hakeni minashim ba'ohel tivorach. So the Yael is being praised more than the women in the tent. So what's that? Manin hu nashim ba'ohel. Who are the women in the tent? Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Valeah. So Yael gets praised on some level higher than our imahos. So what did Yael do? She was with Sisera, and she wanted to kill him, so she ended up intoxicating him, having relations with him, and then piercing him in the skull and killing him. That's an aveira, very, very questionable. How in the world was she allowed to do that? You're not allowed to have incest with a non-Jew. That's one of the big three. It could be one of the big three. Like, you can't do that. So you have to know Yael and all its intricacies. Either way, though, it's called an aveira l'shma, and she's praised. Is that really true? What do you mean? What's so bad about doing things for the wrong reasons? As long as that's how you start. Eventually, after doing things at Shalom Lishma, you will get to a level of Piyah Lishma. So, Ema Kim Mitzvah Shalom Lishma. What it means is, it's like doing it for a mitzvah for the wrong reasons. Meaning, I'm not 100% sure the answer, but it seems like that there's two levels. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, and for the wrong reasons only. And they're doing it for like the beginning wrong intentions, but it'll lead to the right intentions. So that's fine. They say you give a kid candy so he'll learn more Torah. So he's learning for the candy, but eventually he'll learn for learning. However, just doing it for the wrong reason in and of itself, so that's not good. And that's what the Gemara says, that Aveir Lishma is greater than that. Amr Yochanan, Sheva be'ilos bal oso Rasha ba'oso Shah. So that Rasha referring to Sisera, yeah. I was like, I don't understand that. Yeah. Sheva be'ilos bal oso Shah. He had 7 relations that at that time. Shinamar, as the verse says in Shoftim, Bein Ragleha Kara Nafal Shaka Bein Ragleha Kara Nafal Asher Kara Sham Nafal Shadud. So talks about him bowing down and lying down with her many times. So so I guess Bein Ragleha, between her legs, Kara Nafal. He bowed down and fell. Basher Kara Sham Nafal Shadud. Hooray Shiva. How do you get the 7? Where do you get 7? He bent. Okay, good. He bent, he fell, he lay. That's 3. Then again, that's 5. And then Kara, and then Nafal. And then he bent again, and then fell. 6, 7. Okay, good. Good, thank you. So, says the Gemara, the Kamis Hanya Me'avera, but this Avera, I mean, she got pleasure from it, some level of pleasure, incest, relations. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Afilu Tavasam Shel Rishayim, Raha Hi Eitzel Tzadikim. So it sounds like they're Miss Kanya may Avera. We're asking that she got pleasure, right? Not he got pleasure. Right. She got pleasure from the Avera. So that's also interesting. That the assumption is even when she was doing this, just to save the Jewish people, there's still some pleasure involved. Relation always has an element of pleasure. So Rabbi Yochanan, but no, the even the good of the Rishayim is considered evil for the tzaddikim. So even though for him, for the Rasha, there's a good element here because he's having relations with her. But at the end of the day, whatever tzaddikim find as good, whatever Rishayim found as good, or that tzaddikim find as evil. So since he's evil, he's an evil person. So even though usually relations comes with some level of pleasure, however, in this case, it was not pleasurable for her at all. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, La'olam Yasser Adam Matar Mitzvah Shalishma, Shemitok Shalishma, Balishma. Person should always do mitzvahs, even for the wrong reason, because from there you will get to the right reason. Balishma. Chaim Volozhin famously writes that it's not just a good idea; you should always do that. Don't try to think you're Mr. Righteous in the beginning and do things always for the right reason. You should always start off, even for the wrong intentions. It's fine. That's because it's going to lead you to the right intentions. Don't jump, in religiosity to be super righteous in the beginning. So, Shebeschar Mem Beis. What's the proof? In the reward of the Mem Beis Karbanos, Hikri Balak. Balak brought all these sacrifices and trying to curse the Jewish people. At the end of the day, he brought a sacrifice to God, right? So what happened? Zachav Yatzamen Rus. From there, he was Zocha to have Rus. Rus came from there, from Moab. The Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, Rus Bas Beno Shel Eglon, Ben Beno Shel Balak, Melech Balak. Rus, the granddaughter of Eglon, who was the grandson of Balak, the king of Moab. That's very interesting. Even something like that, there's still some reward in that. And not only some reward, you get Rus out of that. Not bad. Yeah. Other Gemara say that because of the tznius that Shaul had, he got Rus. So everything fits together. Okay. Amar Chibar Abba Amar B'Yochanan Minayin She'ena Kodesh Baruch Hu Mekapech Afilu Schar Sichana. Okay, this is very important. That Hashem doesn't hide, doesn't conceal any reward. Even a little bit of a nice act gets reward. There's nothing positive that is done that is not rewarded for. So even nice speech. How do I know? Back to Lot. The Ilu Bechira, the older daughter, called the son Moab. She called from the father. Amar Le. So to that, what happened? So why was that so positive from the father? Meaning, as opposed to from the daughter. I mean, I guess you call him from the father, you're not going to know that it came from illicit relation, right? This son's from the father. You don't know that it's from the father because he had a relationship with his daughter. So that's considered a nice speech. That's a very positive speech that gets rewarded for. What's the reward? Hashem tells Moshe, Moshe, Al Tetzer Moab, the Altis Garbam, Milchama. Sorry. This is an example of not good speech. She called it from the father, like the kid came from the father. Right? I'm his mother, and the kid came from the father. That's not good. So on that, the Torah says, Al Tetzer Moab, Al Tiskarbam, but Al Tiskarbam Milchama. Milchama hu delo, but ha tzuri tzarinu. Instructions was don't battle, don't cause war with them, but to cause them trouble, that you're allowed to do. That you can do. You can cause them, you can cause them agitation, whatever, to get to their land or whatever it is. You can scare them and intimidate them to get through their land. Just don't have war with them. Okay. The Ilu Tzeir, the younger daughter, the Karya Ben Ami, right? Amon Ben Ami, he's the son of the nation. The son of the nation has no implication of any incestual acts. Therefore, the verse says, for that, Al Titzurim Al Tiskarbam, do not afflict them and do not start war with them at all. You can't cause any affliction on them whatsoever. Because of the nice speech that she named the son, Ben Ami, the son of the nation, not the son of my father, son of the father, she was rewarded that whole nation, the Jews cannot, not only can they not wage a war with them, but they can't even, intimidate them or scare them or anything. So there you see that even the smallest act of a nice speech gets rewarded. Yeah. Okay. You should always get up to do a mitzvah. Be the first one to do a mitzvah. So even though we just criticized her for the way she named the child, but at the end of the day, we're still praising her that in her mind and her sister's mind, it was time to do a mitzvah, and she was the first one. She went and she did the mitzvah first and had relations with her father to repopulate the world. Therefore, she was zocha to 4 generations. Now, our Gemara says malchus, but some take it out because Rashi points out what were the 4 generations. It was Obed, Yishai, David, and Shlomo. So Obed was Obed, Yishai, David, and Shlomo. I think Obed was, what was the son? I believe, but not all of those. Yishai wasn't a king. Obed wasn't a king. So therefore, some take out the word malchus. But it's not like Rashi has that version of malchus. It means he had 4 generations of like these upstanding people. You know, Obed and Yishai and David and Shlomo, as opposed to the younger one. It didn't work out that way. Rashi points out that from Ammon ended up coming Rechavam ben Shlomo. And Rechavam, the kingdom split. So yeah, because they came from the Amma HaAmmonites. So he didn't have that same lineage that the older daughter had. Kana Rabbanan. Okay, back to our scheduled programming. Yeah, back to Korbanos and a king and a anointed and the Kohen Gadol. It says when it comes to doing a Aveira inadvertently, you have to bring a sin offering, and it says Me'am Haaretz. From the people, what does that mean? From the people, from the commoner, Prat LeMashiach. Prat, excluding a Kohen Gadol, he's not going to bring that regular sin offering. Me'am Haaretz, Prat LeNasi. Commoner is also excluding a king. Anybody who's not a commoner is going to be excluded from bringing your regular sin offering. Okay. The Halok Kvar Yatzu Mashiach, Lidon Bepar, and Nasi, Lidon B'Seir. Like we know this already. The Torah tells you explicitly when it comes to a king doing an inadvertent act, right, which we learned means following his erroneous ruling, he brings a bull. And a Nasi brings a goat, as opposed to a regular person always brings a female animal, female goat or female sheep, as a chata. So we already know that they're singled out and they're different. You don't need a verse to teach you that, oh, by the way, they're different. The Torah tells us that they're different. So you would have thought Sheyachol Mashiach Helam Davar in Shigas Ma'isa Mevi Par, that a Kohen Gadol only brings his unique offering of a bull when he errs erroneously and then acts upon his erroneous ruling. However, all Shigas Ma'isa, when he does something erroneously, a regular inadvertent act not followed by any erroneous ruling, L'chudei, maybe Kisva V'Seira, then he should bring a regular sin offering. No, regular sin offering is only brought by a commoner and not by the Kohen Gadol. So Me'am Aretz, Prat LeMashiach, Me'am Aretz, Prat LeNasi, it's coming to exclude a Kohen Gadol and coming to exclude a king. So Pinach Mashiach LeNasi B'Shkus Ma'isa who the Ma'isi. Okay, I understand a king, a Kohen Gadol. You just proved it to me that a Kohen Gadol is excluded from bringing any time he does something inadvertently, he's not bringing that regular sin offering. But a Nasi, we don't need a special verse for that. The Torah also tells us that when he does an inadvertent act, he brings a regular male goat, which is not the same as a female goat that a regular person brings. So what do you need the verse to exclude a Nasi for? Isn't it explicit in the Torah? Interesting case. You eat a kazayas chela. You eat a kazayas of forbidden fat when you're a hedyot, when you are a commoner. And then you get a mazel tov, you've just been appointed king. And then after you've been appointed king, you realize that as a commoner, no delo, that when you were a commoner, you ate forbidden fat inadvertently. So now, we had a machlokas earlier. Do you go after the time of the Aveira, or do you go after the time that you found out you did an Aveira? Since every inadvertent act has to have a, oh my gosh, I did something wrong, in order to bring a sacrifice. If you don't know that you did something wrong, then how are you bringing a sacrifice? So if you go after when you sinned as a commoner. If you go after when you were known about the Aveira, well, that didn't happen at the same time that you committed the Aveira. That happened when you were now the king. So let's see. You would have thought Nasi Kispa Oseira that since you did the Aveira at the time when you were a commoner, even though now you are a king, you should still bring the female sheep, the female goat. Kamash, well, the verse tells you never. Never will you bring a regular sin offering, even if you were a commoner when you did it, and now you are a king. It doesn't matter. You're not going to bring it. Now, Rabbi Shimon, that only goes off Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says you have to have both things at the same time period, your sin and your knowledge. You have to be a commoner when you found out about it also to be obligated. According to Rabbi Shimon, if you find out you did something wrong, but your status has changed, you would have never have thought that you should bring an offering. So according to Rabbi Shimon, back to our question, you don't need a verse to tell you that you don't bring a sacrifice. Rabbi Shimon has a requirement that you have to know about your inadvertent act in the same status that you were. If you change statuses, then you would not need to bring a offering. And you don't need a verse for that. For him, that's logical. Sorry, one second. Sorry. It's good for Reb Shimon. It's good for Reb Shimon. That supports him because that's what the verse is telling you, that you don't need to bring an offering because your knowledge and your avera were at different points. But the rabbis, even after the verse, seem to always go after the time you did the avera. It sounds like they would obligate you to bring an offering, even though now you're a king. But since you did it when you were a commoner, they would obligate you. And yet, this Bryce is saying that the verse tells you that you wouldn't bring a sacrifice. So according to the Rabbanon, we have a contradiction. What must be the case? You had half a kazayas chela when you were a commoner, and then what happened? And then you became a king, and then you ate the other half. So together you ate a whole, and then you found out that you did something wrong. That burger you thought was a good burger is actually full of forbidden fats. So you would have thought the two halves should combine together, and then you should bring a female goat or sheep like a regular commoner. Kamash Malan, that the verse tells you, it's coming to exclude that unique case that you are never going to bring that female goat or female sheep. Just food for thought. A problem with this Gemara is that to combine eatings, you have to eat in a very short time period, what we call the sprat, which everyone thinks is a halacha by eating matzah within 2 to 9 minutes. It's a halacha always. You always have to eat and drink within a period of time, or else it's considered 2 separate eatings and drinkings. So whenever you eat challah every Shabbos, after that hamotzi is made, you got to have enough challah. Usually 1 normal piece is enough to be considered, an eating. So here, had this all happened, he ate half and then became king and then ate half, it all happened within 2 to 9 minutes, maybe. But that's a difficulty that's talked about. Bo minei Rabbi Meir of Nachman. 15. Okay. So Bo minei Rabbi Meir of Nachman. Nisius mahu shet tafse. Does the kingship stop something? Okay. What does that mean? What's the case? Could go, for example, our case we just mentioned. He ate half a kazayis chelek when he was a commoner, regular guy in this manner, and then he became a king of Rabbi Shlimu, and then he went and completed the other half. So, do we say that being the king breaks that up or not? So, Hasamhu, maybe over there you'll say the lo mitzdarei, the achla palga kishu hedyo, palga kishu nasi. Maybe there it's not going to combine because it was half as a commoner and half as a king. Aval hacha. The Edi v'Edi kishu edyot, achle mitzdarif, odil maloshna. So what's this case? This case is so he ate both halves as a commoner. Oh, right, sorry. Does it break it up? Meaning, right, good. As a commoner, you ate half a kazayis chelek, and then you became the king, and then soon after you became back to a commoner. Maybe you got saras, could be, I don't know, that's going to count. But you become a commoner, and then you had the other half chelek, right? So that's the shortest term in history. Yeah. So does that count? So on the one hand, when it's half as a commoner and half as a king, so okay, maybe that combined. But in this case, does that combine? You have that big break in the middle. So says the Gemara, Tipshet le meha. Why don't you conclude from the following case? So the Amar Ula Amar B'Yochanan Achol Kelev V'Hifish Korban. A person eats Kelev, forbidden fat. The Hifish Korban separates an offering to be brought V'Hamir, and then he rejects his Judaism, the chazarbo, and then he comes back. So does he bring that offering that was set aside or not? Says the Gemara, Hoel v'nitcha yitcha. No, once he was pushed off, he was pushed off. Once he rejected his Judaism, then he's no longer going to be obligated to bring that offering. Then he can't come back, even now that he's back in his righteous ways. So maybe here also, once he became the king, and you're no longer obligated to in that korban, so therefore it's not going to come by. Says the Gemara, Hachi Hash, is that really similar? Mumar la barasi korbanu. A mumar, someone who's a apostate, he's not someone who is we allowed to bring a sacrifice at all. But a king does bring a sacrifice, albeit in different circumstances. But he still does bring he is someone called a bar korban. He does bring a sacrifice. So maybe he's going to be different. So you cannot prove from an apostate to a king who really is someone who can bring sacrifices. Therefore, that question remains unanswered, and we'll continue tomorrow.